Hello everybody, welcome to BodyTrust Weekly number 9. I'm your host, Dr. Doug. Glad you could join me. On today's show, I'd like to talk about overeating. Yeah, it's a big problem for a lot of people. In fact, ever since the 1980s speed up of production in the workforce, obesity started to climb in the United States. I'm talking about where I live. So that's when it started going up. Before then, it held level. And now 2/3 of Americans are officially considered overfed, carrying too much weight. You only get that weight, by the way, from eating. It only comes from food. It doesn't come from chemicals. It doesn't come from water or air. Fat is, in fact, 9 calories per gram of food storage. You could look at your fat cells as food storage containers. If your food storage containers are so full that they're bursting, well, you have overeaten and you're carrying too much weight to be optimally healthy. So let's talk about that. And by the way, those enlarged fat cells, this is a little bit of a review. Those enlarged fat cells secrete estriol, which keeps us nice and happy in 3 ways. And eating, and just the act of eating stimulates dopamine. Bing! You know that feeling where you get a reward. Yeah, food, yum. That's all kinds of rewards, right? That's just one of them, but that happens to be a very popular one because it's everywhere and it makes people money, lots of money, the food industry. And it's cheap in most modern societies. Calories are cheap, so people eat to feel better, not physically better, as we'll learn, but mentally better. They want that dopamine kick. That's what all addictions are about, by the way, is that dopamine kick. So your body tells you, and my body tells me, when to stop eating so that you won't gain weight. Isn't that amazing? Because the human body is genius and it counts calories. Más o menos. It does. You can eat a little plate of bacon, and before long, your body will say, okay, so you can eat a big plate of watery vegetables and more food, but it takes longer for your body to say, okay, that's all. You know, but in order to hear this or feel what the body is telling us, we have to eat without distractions. You can't be distracted. If you're going to eat, think about your cat and your dog and how they love you, love, 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 love. But when they're eating, don't bother them. They don't like it. Try it. They don't like it. If they're really hungry, I'm not going to let you touch them. Well, you should be the same way with your food and your body. Always attentive to the body's messages that will tell you stop. You know, the first thing is the flavor. The deliciousness starts to go down within one bite. I kid you not. I used to eat tons of sugar. Oh man, I'll tell you someday about my adventures with sugar. But anyway, I'd go into a store and buy a Snickers bar and eat the whole thing without thinking. See, now if I buy and eat, which I don't, but if I were to eat a Snickers bar, the first bite would be, yeah. The second bite would be, that's pretty good. The third bite would start to taste probably like, kind of gummy, kind of, yeah, you know, not as delicious, for sure. That's my body saying, psst, hello, are you listening? Stop. So I do. But if you keep going, then within one bite, you start to feel a bloat in the abdomen, in the middle part of your body here, where the stomach is. Now, you know, really obese people are always bloated down there. And so it's hard for them to hear one more little bit of bloat. But they can, if they train themselves to eat without distractions. This is the key. This is the key. Now, I have a system to help people listen to their bodies when they're eating. It's called Hunger Awareness Training. I've been using it for 20 years, gotten a lot of great success, and brought people up to new levels of eating consciousness. You know, I put up people on a 5-point scale. 1 is really hungry, 2 is hungry. You have to be lean to feel hunger. 3 is comfortable. That's where we like to be. 4 is full. We don't like to be there. We're putting on weight. 5 is stuffed, like I used to do at Thanksgiving and Christmas. You know, that's what you're supposed to do, right? I don't do that anymore, but they're really in pain. Anyway, that's the 5-point scale. Now, hunger is an empty feeling in the stomach area. It's not headaches or weakness or fatigue or all kinds of reasons why you're supposed to eat. No, it's an empty feeling in the stomach area that prepares you and motivates you to go to work and get food. Yeah. So when you're starting hunger awareness training, I always have people attend to 3, 4, and 5 because I want to stop adding to the problem. If you're continuously eating to 4 and 5, then you really need to eat without distractions so that you feel the pain. Because the more you feel the pain, the harder it is to keep doing it. If you tell a kid to not stick his hand in the fire, he's going to do it. If you say, now, if you stick that hand in the fire, I want you to feel the pain. You do what you want. Stick his hand in the fire, and that'll be the last time he ever does that. Right. Well, that's how it is with hunger awareness training. You get to the point where you can't overeat. It's hard to overeat. Doesn't matter how delicious the food is. It ain't as delicious as it was one bite ago, and you just don't want to do it. But you have to eat without distractions. So no alcohol or pot, very distracting. Stop thinking about money and relationships. They're not going to help you eat. They're not going to help you listen to your body. It's time to listen to your body when you eat, when you do things with your body. Minimal socializing, or none, for a while. Some people have to just cut off their, oh, let's go have dinner. Oh, let's have lunch. No, let's have a drink. Let's go to Starbucks and get some coffee. Well, we're supposed to have lunch. Well, I'm not eating lunch today. Anyway, no work. Don't eat at your workstation. Are you kidding? They don't do that in Europe. It's dirty. No TV. Don't eat in front of the TV. TV is going to distract you like crazy. Or the computer, too. Shut it down for a few minutes, huh? Don't take your 10 minutes. Don't eat when you're driving. Don't eat when you're bicycling, when you're skateboarding, or when you're walking forward. Right? Now, I am available for HAT, Hunger Awareness Training, by video, phone, or in person if you live in LA or Orange County, or want to fly in for the weekend. So that's all, amigos. Good talking with you this week. Stay tuned for the next segment, Wellness in the News. Welcome back, everybody, to Wellness in the News. I'm your reporter, Dr. Doug. I have a couple of interesting items here in the news that I want to bring to your attention, discuss a little bit. The first one is the issue of phone addiction, which we've all been noticing if we're not participating in it ourselves. This need to connect to the phone 500 times a day. Seriously, some people actually do that. Well, I'm going to read you a little article from Science Daily, again, so that you don't think this is just some old guy who doesn't like change, complaining about phones, okay? The behavioral addiction of smartphone use begins forming neurological connections in the brain in ways similar to how opioid addiction is experienced by people taking OxyContin for pain relief, a researcher explained. In a survey of 135 San Francisco State students, researchers found that students who used their phones the most reported higher levels of isolated, lonely, depressed, and anxious. They believe the loneliness is partly a consequence of signals of replacing face-to-face interaction, exactly, with a form of communication where body language and other signals cannot be interpreted. They also found that those same students almost constantly multitasked while studying, watching other media, eating, or attending class. Multitasking is the order of the day, unfortunately. This excessive activity allows little time for bodies and minds to relax and regenerate, and also results in semi-tasking, that's what they call it, where people do 2 or more tasks at the same time, but half as well as if they just focused on one task at a time. This has been shown over and over in studies. Multitasking really does not pay off. The researchers blame the tech industry's desire to increase corporate profits. Well, that is part of it. But you know, I also blame a fragmented and alienating society that promotes misery and unhealthy addictions of all kinds to sedate that misery and those feelings coming from the body. Whatever they are, because feelings do come from the body. So, personally, I carry a smartphone, but I check it maybe 3 or 4 times a day, because I'd rather be here and now and living in this world, because this present physical world is, to me, what is most important and what is most immediate. It's the big world, not the tiny world with a small screen. But I understand where that's coming from, but I'll tell you what, phone addiction is both a symptom and a cause of psychological disorders. So it would do people well to find a way to get off of those phones. It's such pressure to answer that ding every time. Believe me, it is. And that pressure is no good. We need nature. We gotta have nature. We're just not going to be healthy. Here's another item. Dancing reverses aging brain. This is from the journal Frontiers. A study comparing dancing with endurance training, like running on a treadmill, undertaken by elderly volunteers for 18 months, shows that both can have an anti-aging effect on the brain, but only dancing corresponded to a noticeable difference in behavior. This difference is attributed to the extra challenge of learning dancing routines. I have been dancing all of my life, fortunately. Thank you. I love it. It's expression, but expresses the music in the form of the body. I've been swing dancing for 20 years. I'm pretty good at it. And I've been ballet dancing for 3 years. Not pretty good at it. But learning stuff all the time. And let me tell you, ballet is tough. It's one of the toughest physical activities I've ever attempted, and I've done a lot. I would highly recommend it. Even just a bar class will work you out. I ain't kidding you. Your core. And social dancing, oh my goodness, there you go. You're in the arms of a lovely person for 3 minutes. You're in love. And then the music ends and it's all clean. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Right, well, that's all the wellness in the news. It's fit to yell at you today. Stay tuned for the interview. Thank you. Hasta luego. Hasta luego. Welcome, everybody, to my show, the interview portion, in which I interview someone I consider to be a leader of the wellness revolution. And with me today is a good friend of mine, Doric George. An amazing person. He's a psychotherapist in private practice in LA since 1997. He's licensed professional clinical counselor, a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. He's a certified EMDR therapist and approved consultant, a certified in neurofeedback, and all kinds of good stuff. Thank you for joining me today, Doric.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Doug, for having me.
Well, Doric treats all kinds of anxiety-related disorders, and I want him to start off by telling us explaining his mind-body approach to his clients' issues.
Well, mind-body is an interesting phrase. It kind of implies that there's a separation between mind-body. And a lot of people are saying that there really is no separation. It's all a continuum of the same thing. But for my work, I find that it's very useful to actually have a distinction. Although my distinction is a little different. I don't separate mind and body. I separate mind and brain. And let me define what I mean by brain and mind, and then I'll tell you how I approach each. So brain is the physiological, electrochemical, neurobiological organ of the brain. And of course, the brain is intertwined with all of the systems of the body. It's not disconnected. It's part of it. Your blood flow, your nervous system, your organ function, everything affects the brain. It's all one continuum. And actually, some people, scientists now, they're actually saying that consciousness arises out of the brain, out of the physical entity of the brain. Although I'm not quite ready to go there yet, although I look at consciousness as versus the brain. Okay, so we've got the brain. The brain is the physical part of our thinking process. Now, the mind is something else. The mind is our awareness, our experiencer, consciousness, the receiver of the sensory input. If you want to really know what the mind is, close your eyes and look at a monkey. If you have trouble looking at a monkey, see an elephant. If you have trouble seeing an elephant, try not to see an elephant. Okay? If you still have trouble seeing an elephant, see anything. And if you can't see anything, just look into the darkness. Okay? You looking at the darkness, the looker, that's you. That's what I consider the mind. Okay, and that mind, it's interesting to see what that mind does, how that mind participates in the functioning of the brain. I mean, where do we draw the line between the brain and the mind? And as science advances, more and more things are attributed to the brain. Even emotional function is attributed to the brain. We can see how and where in the brain it's producing certain emotions. Maybe not all emotions, in my opinion, but certain emotions. Okay, so we've got the brain and the mind. So what do I do with this distinction? So with the brain, I look at the brain to help the brain with, of course, diet, exercise. One of the most important things is sleep. I work with neurofeedback that actually helps balance the electric balances in the brain, the alpha, the beta, and the theta, and where in the brain those things need to be. And detoxification, nutrients. I'm a certified brain health consultant with the Amen Institute, so I work with nutrients. I also help people communicate with their psychiatrist better so they can get on the right kind of meds. And then on the mind side, the part of you that's participating or that's actually using the tool of the brain. Okay, and I believe that the mind can have some control over the brain. Working with the mind, we work with the thoughts. Even the structure of thoughts happens in the brain, but I believe that the mind can actually assert some control over the functioning of the brain, over what they think. In cognitive behavioral psychology, they believe that you can control your thoughts, and if you can control your thoughts, you can control your emotions. I don't think it's 100% like that. I think it goes back and forth. I think the emotions do control the mind to some extent. They affect the mind, they affect your mood. And on the other hand, the mind does affect the thoughts at the same time. And as we work with the mind, we can strengthen the mind's ability to affect the emotions, to change the way you feel. You can change your thoughts if you practice that. Okay, and that gives you an idea of the mind and the brain. Working with the mind, I work with EMDR, I work with remembering things in a different way, I work with cognitive behavioral.
Doric,
yes.
you need to write a book. He really does. I'm after him. I'm for a long time to write a book. You treat a lot of anxiety disorders. Well, how do you define anxiety?
Okay, to look at anxiety, we look at the difference between anxiety, and fear. Okay, fear is a natural physiological response that we all have. It's your fight, flight, freeze, or faint mechanism.
Freeze
Okay.
or faint.
Freeze or faint. Yeah, that's something that people often neglect, the freeze or faint part.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
know,
deer
right?
in the headlights. There's a
Right,
part of your nervous system that shuts you down. And
right.
it's actually very similar to shame. It's a shutdown. So when we have an anxiety response, actually, let me go back to fear. What is fear? Fear is a natural survival, adaptive functioning that we have developed over eons. Okay, helps us survive. Now, fear, there's a lion in the room and you're scared. That's natural. Someone's attacking you with a knife. There's a fire in the bedroom. That's fear. There's something to be afraid of.
Right.
Anxiety, you're imagining a lion in the room. There's no lion in the room, but you're imagining it. The interesting thing is the body doesn't know the difference between what you're actually experiencing and what you're imagining vividly. So you're going to have that same response. Okay, so anxiety is a product of your imagination. All your fears are imagined. That's the good news. The bad news is that your imagination is a very powerful thing, and to get control of it takes a bit of doing.
Why can't you just tell people to stop worrying? If they choose their thoughts, then they just tell them to stop worrying and take their money and.
I wish I could. That would be great if you could do that. The problem is that people don't always have control over that. They are. I don't want to discount them and say, why don't you just do this? Because why don't you just is severely insulting to someone who's having a real struggle with anxiety because they don't think they can, and to some extent they can't. It's like saying, why can't you just lift 200 pounds? Just pick it up over your head. Well, eventually, if they practice in the right way, they will be able to lift 200 pounds over their head, and they can have that as an accomplishment. But you can't just go and say, why can't you lift 200 pounds?
Are you thinking of your days in ballet?
I am, actually, or weightlifting as well, where you have to build up the strength to be able to achieve something. Right. And you can do that. You can build up your ability to set boundaries, your ability to change your thoughts, your ability to think different things. And of course, it all begins with awareness.
Yes.
Awareness, right. Understanding the process, understanding what anxiety is, how it affects you, and beginning to make a change with that.
Speaking of awareness, can you have anxiety and not be aware of it?
Yes, you can, because there's different kinds of anxiety. See, some people, when bad things happen to them, they become very aware. They want to prevent those bad things from happening again. So they become hypervigilant. Now, I had some clients, they are always looking, they're always ready. They're ready to fight. They're ready to handle anything. And if you say you're scared, they go, I'm not scared. I can handle anything. I can take care of that. I can beat that person up. I can, do whatever. They're operating out of anxiety, but they're hypervigilant. They wouldn't say they're scared. If I say you're scared, they go, I'm not scared. I'm not afraid of anything. I can handle that. But it's from fear. Other people, they say I'm not afraid of things, but they're always avoiding things. Like someone who's afraid of flying, they'll just say, well, I don't really need to fly. I'm happy where I am. I don't have to get on that plane. So they don't expose themselves to the fear. So they've hidden the idea, they've hidden their anxiety. Right. So there's different ways to hide it until it comes up in some situation and they find that they are scared, that it hinders their life in some way. Then they come to me and we dig in under some of the defenses, which is the hardest part of handling anxiety, is digging into the defenses, the denial.
Do you ever treat people with panic attacks?
I do.
Wow, that's scary.
That is scary.
Really, and painful.
Well, the thing about panic attacks is if you panic having a panic attack, it makes the panic worse. Because the fact is, the panic attack no one ever died of a panic attack. A panic attack can't hurt you. It's a physiological thing. If it gets triggered, then if you relax into it, there's nothing that's going to make a panic attack go away right away. But if you accept it and you roll with it, it'll eventually fade away. All emotion travels in a cycle. It starts like a cannon, gets fired. It shoots a cannonball, and it reaches an apex, and it falls down. All emotion goes there. All fear goes that way. Yeah. Now, what happens with a panic attack is the fear gets triggered, sometimes physiologically triggered, because of nothing going on. An internal physiological instability causes a panic attack. or causes a panic feeling. The ball gets shot out of the cannon. However, once it gets shot, then you have anxiety about, oh my God, what's happening to me? My hands are shaking. I don't know what to do. This is worse. So it's like the cannonball turns into a rocket ship, and it starts to fire, and it starts to go higher, and then it fires again, and it goes higher, and it fires again, and it goes higher, and we call it looping, and it goes more and more and more, and that's where you end up with a panic attack. It's a feedback loop. Anxiety leads to anxiety, and you have anxiety about anxiety, and then you end up in a panic attack. It's like being patient with yourself. See, working with anxiety is completely counterintuitive. Everybody wants the anxiety to go away. But the more you try to push it away, the more it persists. The more you accept and develop patience with your impatience, then you become more patient, you become more relaxed, and you can get there more quickly. Although you still have to ride the waves, eventually the waves become less and less and less until eventually these waves of anxiety become little blips that eventually go away.
Have you found anxiety to adversely affect people's physical health?
Yes, but if you worry about that, it'll just make it worse.
It will, won't it?
Well, they did studies with rats, and they showed they took a rat. It was a horrible experiment, actually. They put a rat in water, and it almost drowned, and they pulled it out. And they did it again, and it almost drowned, and they pulled it out. So that's extreme stress on the rat, and they found that those rats aged much more quickly. So in the long term, anxiety will decrease your health. However, if you're worried about that, it's going to make it worse, so that's not going to help. You need to relax into your anxiety, allow it, work with it, get help for it. Don't just pretend it's not there. Work with it. You make it less and less, and if you work towards relaxation, if you work with patience, well, first of all, you're going to have more friends. More people are going to like you. You're going to be less agitating to the people around you. And you're going to be healthier. You're going to find some of your health problems are going to fade away.
So people need to come to you for their anxiety.
Or someone, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, now, people want to contact you, Doric. How do they do that?
Well, they can go to my website, emdrwest.com.
Okay.
Or they can call me. Actually, I don't mind. I love people to call me, 310-717-1771.
Well, there we go. All right. Doric George, my favorite psychotherapist. Right here in West LA, or is it Culver City? We haven't figured that out.
It's like right on the border.
It's right on the border. So thank you for being with me today, Doric.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and maybe I'll see you in ballet class.
Yes, maybe.
He's really good. He can do triples, honestly. He can do triples. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me, folks. Hasta luego. Welcome, amigos. Dr. Doug here. Please subscribe to my show. And be sure to share it with your friends. Also, please click that little bell so that you will be notified every time I post a new episode.